Well, good day, eh? Thanks so much for inviting me to your Tech Field Day party. So great. Gets me out of the cabin for a whole week. My wife's at home shoveling snow. I'm enjoying the warm Florida rain. It's so much better. Anyways, so as you know, I guess, I'm a Canadian. I'm not just a Canadian. I'm from British Columbia, Canada. And for those of you that may know, 95% of the workforce in British Columbia are in the lumber industry. We're lumberjacks. The remaining 5% are Mounties. After I work for Cisco, I go moonlight. You know, I cut down these 300-foot Douglas fir trees. It's nothing like it. It's the best thing. But anyways, I get a lot. And by the way, I'm a lumberjack. I'm okay. I sleep all night and I work all day. And that's where the similarities end. It's just important for me to say that. Anyways, I get a lot of letters from our Canadian customers, a lot. And a lot of them go something along this line. It's like, "Dear Cisco Hoser," that's what they call me. "I got some budget this quarter, and for the life of me, I'm totally stumped figuring out what to do with it. On the one hand, I was thinking of ordering a DNA Center appliance, you know, get started on my intent-based networking journey. On the other hand, I was thinking of buying all the staff some extra maple syrup. You know, get them through this winter. It's only mid-June after all, eh? So please let me know your thoughts. I'm in a real pickle. Yours sincerely, Gordon McDonald. P.S. Bagged a moose this weekend, so come on over for some burgers, eh?" So that's what I'm here to talk about. I get these kind of letters all the time. So I figured, why not just put this thing to bed once and for all? Let's go down the list. There's a lot of good things about maple syrup, a lot of good things about DNA assurance. There's a lot of similarities. You know, let's just call them out, put it all on the table, have an objective analysis, and come to a conclusion. Sound good? Is there a timer? Oh, there's a timer. Great. Okay, so I figured I'm going to go down the list, 5 different criteria. I'm going to talk about production, consumption, health, insights, and getting the best start. All right? Let's start with production. There's a lot of similarities in production when it comes to maple syrup production or what DNA analytics does. Basically, you start with a lot to get a little. For instance, we nail these 12-liter pails to trees. I guess you call them gallons if you don't speak metric. And we nail them to thousands of trees, and over the course of a day, they fill up. And over the course of 2 months, we collect all this sap. And you need about 50 times the volume of sap to concentrate and get to the gold, the end product of what you want, in the form of maple syrup. Well, it's very similar when it comes to analytics and assurance. You start with a ton of input. You gather a lot to end up with a little. And so you gather from network devices, 20,000 flows per second, for example, of net flow entries, or SNMP or syslog or other data type streaming telemetry, and you combine that with input that you get from policy servers, from application servers, from IPAM servers, from peer analytics systems, from clients, from sensors, and from any other thing that can add and complement and augment your data until you get some very pure, very useful results. And basically, you're looking to come up with 3 different numbers. A number to represent your overall health of your network. And you know what? Why don't we flip over to the real NOC and take a look at what the NOC's health is right now? Did anyone have any issues yesterday in this building? Not in this one? Or did you have some in this one too? Okay, every building? Okay, so the network, we had some health issues. We want client health, and we want a 3rd number for application health. So we're starting with a tremendous amount of info. We're boiling and aggregating and concentrating and refining until we get that gold, which is these high-level inputs to tell us how are things in our network. How is the health overall of our network? So as far as though then production strategies, it's the same. You start with a little, end up with a lot, but when it comes to DNA assurance, we do it a lot faster. It's a lot more scalable. We gather so much more from so many different types of inputs, and then we do it so much faster. I gave some examples of the actual numbers, but then when we ingest all these bits of information, we put into a graph database, a time series database, so you can go back in time and know the variable, any given variable of any given client, input, KPI from the network, from anything, at any moment in time, and how it relates to anything else. It's kind of like a digital PVR. When you're watching a hockey game, a basketball game, or whatever you guys, football game, right? You want to see how the goal was scored or how the touchdown was done. You rewind and you see everybody. It saves you having to replicate. That's tremendously valuable. We do it really fast. We put a contextual entry into our database 60,000 times per second. Do you know what that means, a contextual database entry? Where we tie a user to a MAC, to an IP, to a NetFlow record, to an application, to quality statistics, and all of this is one entry, and we do that 60,000 times a second, 218 million times per hour, 5.2 billion times per day. So we do a lot more production to get that gold. So I think we're winning in the first count. Now when it comes to consumption, there's a lot of different ways you can enjoy your maple syrup. You can get cookies, you can get butter, you can get even cotton candy. Well, there's a lot of ways that we can consume the data that we receive from DNA Assurance. Again, let's flip back to our NOC. For instance, we can see the data in the form of device 360. So from a device's point of view, everything it sees and everything that's related to that device will have a unique page. We support 1,000 network devices, wireless LAN controllers, routers, switches, up to 1,000 of these pages alone. Then you can see the NOC here. The NOC here, the WLC is healthy. That's not what caused the issue. I'll talk about the issue from yesterday later. And you can see the clients and APs that are connected to it. And you can see various details and the memory usage and the CPU usage of the NOC WLC. It's all in a page for you, all to absorb. In addition to this, every AP will have its own unique page as well. Another way to consume all this data and orient it around a particular object. We support up to 4,000 APs in DNA Assurance currently, and there's plans for extended scalability. Not only that, but every single client, every wireless client that's on the network, and either I'm going to get this to come up. When you rejoin, it takes a while to pick up, and I just walked into this building a few minutes ago. But if not, let me show you what the screen looks like. You also have client 360s, which will show the view of the world from a particular client. And in this case, I'm showing my own iPhone, not to reveal any personal not to reveal anybody else's personally identifiable information. And so they'll tell me the health of my client, how many the APs that I've associated and seen along the way, and the transmit, receive, and RFs of my clients. Let me see if I can pull up a real-time screen of that as well. If not, I do have a demo in the back demo server I can access, so I'm going to fall back to that. So let's pull up a client. Let's pull up Daphne Blake. She's a good. Here she is. So I'm going to pull up this user on a demo system, and then this will give me a client 360. So everything I know about her devices, which devices she's connected with, and the health of each of them. So for example, I see that she has an iPad that she's connected to the network. She's got a PC. She's got an iPhone. I can see the health, I can see the KPIs, and then not only the overall health, but the individual KPIs that have been contributing to that overall health score. Because it's an iPhone, I can even do extra cool things like look up iOS analytics. That is analytics that she's getting from the iOS device that is being sent to the AP that tells me how she's seeing the world from her end device and not just how the AP is seeing the device in the reverse direction. So a lot of cool insights there. Then, if I keep on, we just added in the 1.2 release, we've added application 360s as well. So every application on your network will also have its own view of the world, and you can see the health and the individual KPIs, loss, latency, jitter, application delay, and so forth. And I'll show some more examples of that as well. So 1,000 network devices, 4,000 APs, 25,000 users, and 1,400 applications all have their own pages. So ways of consuming that data. Yes?
Tim, I've got a question from Harish Chopra. He says, what components are included in the health of the network? How do you calculate it? Is it just ICMP? Does that count include endpoints too? Like, is the number of access points included in it?
Yeah, so the health of the network Network devices will have a health formula based on CPU, memory, link errors, events, data plane health, control plane health, and then this all gets aggregated into something that's more consumable rather than just saying, oh, this is the value of any specific KPI at a given point in time. And similarly with clients. In clients' health, we take a look at the onboarding experience, the signal-to-noise ratios, the RSSI, any events specific to the client, and I'm going to show you some even more parameters. And similar also with applications. We look at loss, latency, jitter, server delays, and things of that sort. So depending on the object, we look at different KPIs that are brought into an overall comprehensive health score, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go. But very good question, thank you. So for consumption, well, we have over 34,000 ways we can consume this data by the various pages that we've just outlined. So if we look at it from that perspective, so far, DNA Assurance is beating maple syrup. Did you know that Canadians live longer than Americans? On average, 3 years longer. Sorry, that's the truth. That's the way it is. I was surprised at that too. But my own pet theory about why this is so is because we're not only the world's leading producers of maple syrup at 81%, but also the leading consumers. I hear some people are more partial to Vermont maple syrup. I'm okay with that too. That's all good. It's healthier. It's healthier as a sweetener. So maybe that's why we live longer. But the point is we take health seriously. And as such, we go to the doctor regularly, and we expect a full, complete examination when we do. That maybe is not quite the way I wanted that to come out, but I'm just not going to dig and scratch at that. If I went into my annual physical exam and only got my hearing tested, and they said, okay, you're done, you can go, I wouldn't feel that he's done a thorough job and put a lot of confidence in that assessment. And similarly, because that's the actual metaphor we're borrowing from in assurance, we're taking this health idea. We wouldn't be satisfied with just taking one measurement, say RSSI, of a client and saying this is indicative of the health overall of the client. That's like a hearing quality. So we want to be more comprehensive, the same way we are in real life. We'd expect a lot of different checks to be done, a lot of different indicators to be assessed, and then we're not going to want just the raw data because we may not understand what our hemoglobin count should be or what the various, tests might reveal. We want our doctor, our expert, to interpret that data on our behalf, tell us how our overall health is, and tell us where we can improve, and specific recommendations on doing so. Well, it's the same with networking. We've just added signal-to-noise ratio in addition to onboarding and RSSI to 1.2. Also, we track events as part of health scores in our clients. And here's another thing that we've just been featuring as well. And let me share it with you. This is pretty new stuff. We're also integrating with StealthWatch. For example, this is now early. This is in, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. Here we go. We have a client here, and then at some point in time, this client, his health score dropped significantly, and the reason for that, we had to confirm malware on that client. And then if I click on the security risk, I can get the details. And even though that traffic and that malware may have been sent in an encrypted form, StealthWatch picks up on it, sends it up to Cognitive for analysis, and the Cognitive confirms that's indeed malware, and then it shares that information back with DNA Assurance. And then think of that from a troubleshooting perspective. This client calls in, and a Tier 1 guy gets a call, and he's like, I can't get on the network. I don't know what is going on. All the while, he may have been in quarantine and trying to access his thing, and the NetOps guy isn't aware of these SecOps decisions, and so by sharing that information, it allows us to identify what the problem is and the reason for it, and then the path to remediation. Not only that, but for health scores for applications, let's take a look at that now too. Some early work we're doing in this area where we're integrating with, say, Skype for Business, talking directly to the app server, which in turn is talking to the clients. Now here's what's interesting about it. We not only generate a score, oh sorry, let me just change the view to a 24-hour view. It'll be more interesting. We not only calculate a health score of the application based on networking statistics like loss, latency, and jitter, but then we're also getting information from the clients themselves to augment the information we get from the network. So specifically from network latency, I can see that the blue is representing network latency that's being pulled in from the network, and what's in purple is being told to me by the Skype for Business clients as well. Now, why would there be a difference? It's because any measurement that's made in the network is by definition midstream. It's not end-to-end. And especially for RTP type of apps, voice or video, if there's loss or latency or jitter incurred downstream, we're missing all of that. And as such, by having the clients themselves making those measurements, uploading that information to a Skype for Business server, which in turn shares the information and closes the loop with DNA Center, we can see, okay, some of that delay happened, here on the network, but some of that delay obviously happened downstream from that place that we took that measurement. It allows us to divide and conquer, isolate that problem area, and again, accelerate that overall remediation. And so we take into account not only the network statistics, but also what the client is reporting and calculating the health scores. It's more richer and it's more holistic and representative. Does that make sense? Cool. Then, so we talked about health. We talked about different ways that we're improving health. Maple syrup is healthy, but you know what? DNA assurance can go a long way to making your network, your client, your applications healthy too, and can do so on a greater scale and faster. So let's give that over to DNA assurance. Next, let's talk about insights. There's a lot of famous Canadian inventors, and they all had their inventions rooted somehow and connected with maple syrup. I don't know if you know this. It's common knowledge in Canada. It's like mandatory learning. Like Alexander Graham Bell, right? 1875, he invents the telephone because of the insights he's gained in his modulation of electrical waves over conductors and vibrations spinning on endpoint devices, and then he applied that to sound. But the root cause is because he lived in Brantford, Ontario, half an hour where I grew up, and he just didn't want to, always bother going out and bothering his neighbor for maple syrup, and get him some more. So he's like, I just want to be able to phone him and tell him, hey, bring me some, because I don't want to leave my place. I want to stay in my lab and keep playing. Another inventor, anyone watching the NBA playoffs recently? Yeah, okay, one. Okay, great. Well, that game was invented by a Canadian, and again is John Naismith. He was running an educational program for teenage boys in actually Boston at the time. And they couldn't get to the hockey rink to play some games. They had 8-foot snowfalls, and so they had to work off all that sugary energy, something indoors. So he invented a game that could be played indoors. And there we go. Basketball came about, again, rooted because of maple syrup. Frederick Banting discovered insulin because of his insights and researching into the operation of the pancreas. But this was actually an invention of necessity because he would consume so much maple syrup he went into diabetic shock nearly every day. And he's like, I got to do something about this, and that's what drove that invention. The key point being, wow. And I'm having a lot of fun with Canadian stereotypes, but I'm hoping to rely on a possible American stereotypes of not being overly inclined to fact check. So wow. I'll just leave that out there.
You are not wrong.
Okay, so the point is insights are very, very valuable. So let's talk about insights. We talked about Apple iOS analytics. If my client disconnects because of user-triggered disassociation from the network, all I see is that he's gone. I don't know why that's happened, but by allowing that kind of communication between clients and endpoints, I've gained now an insight that was hitherto unavailable to me. After me, KP is also going to talk about insights with new tools like intelligent capture that, again, feed into DNA assurance, allow me to see things, especially on the wireless network, that I never had visibility into, opening up a whole new world. Extremely valuable. I could talk about machine learning as well, because this is also an advanced early field trial. And as such, we can provide insights via these artificial intelligence algorithms that can tell us, hey, I spot patterns in your big data. For example, when there's patterns in data, there's 3 reasons why that can happen. Pure dumb coincidence, it could be correlation, or it could be causation. And Statistics 101 tells us that correlation is not necessarily causation, but causation is the goal. If you can get to that goal, that's the real objective of machine learning, if you can spot a causation. Because if you spot a causation, now you have the ability to do cognitive analytics to explain why something is so, and even more interesting, predictive analytics. what something is about to happen based on you see the causes already formulating. So in this view, I'm investigating a radio throughput issue, and this is based on real client data. And the green band represents where I'm predicting radio throughput to be. Radio throughput is not a simple one variable threshold, because wireless is a shared media, and if you're sharing it among everybody on an equal basis, even with the AP on an equal basis with every single wireless device in the room, well, then it's obviously a factor of how many people are in the room, how clear the signal is, how the interference might be, and so on and so forth. And so by taking all of these factors into account, it's predicting that your throughput should be somewhere in this green band area. The blue line represents where the throughput actually is. And where it falls out is shaded in red, saying that's an issue. That I don't expect to happen. There's something going on there that I want to dig into a little bit deeper. And so it also analyzes and presents a number of other variables that are exhibiting the same data patterns, and it allows for guided supervised machine learning, which you can guide by clicking a thumbs up or thumbs down. Hey, include this next time in your analysis, or no, that doesn't make sense. That just might be a correlation. It has nothing to do with causing that issue, and that makes the AI more intelligent. And in this case, interference is what's causing that throughput issue. We verified that with the customer. So gaining all these insights, extremely valuable. Here, let me close with one more insight. We've already touched on it briefly. So let's go back to our NOC screen. For the last 24 hours, the health of clients in the network, and by the way, this is the most we've scaled in a Cisco Live environment. Remember, DNA Assurance, we released it in Barcelona in the end of January. At January, we hit about 13,700 clients, which is pretty close to where we are right now. But at other times, yesterday we hit over 18,000 at certain points. But you can also see something interesting. Did any of you notice this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes? You noticed that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is very interesting. Do you want to know what happened here? The very, very root of the cost. I don't want to embarrass anyone or whatever. Our NOC guys are fantastic. They're phenomenal. They pull off amazing things. The root problem, and there was multiple problems, but the very root problem that occurred here, pardon?
You lost controllers.
No, remember?
Really?
I showed you the NOC controller.
Oh, okay.
Right? The NOC controller's health has been rock solid.
That's right, you're right.
And so it wasn't the controller. It was putting away, and you can see, again, all the KPIs that go into those health calculations. AP count has been climbing pretty high, client count, as people arrive and then leave, et cetera. But I'm showing this on a 7-day time view. So that's important, too, because whatever context I specify up here of interest, 3 hours, 7 hours, 24, whatever, that's what everything below is going to be based on that specific context. So it actually wasn't the AP. I'm sorry, it wasn't the WLC. What it was, the root cause of this outage.
What's your core doing?
Was TCAM overrun of a main distribution layer switch. Now, the arrangement, this is the first time we ever had DNA Assurance here at Cisco Live US. We had it once in Barcelona, what I mentioned. But here's the irony of it, and I'm going to use this because I'm going to be leaning on the NOC team next time hard. They elected to only have DNA Assurance monitoring the wireless network. But if you take a look at the issues that DNA Assurance can identify and track and alert you, that's not the view I want. Here, let me show you. There is something that we monitor for these switches, these wired switches, that really would have helped us here. We monitor TCAMs. We report as they're getting high. We alert you both L2 TCAMs, L3 TCAMs, QoS TCAMs, SG, ACL TCAMs. All of that's monitored and then reported on. It took them 17 minutes to identify the problem, 12 minutes to do the rebooting, 29 minutes outage for that particular thing. We would have identified that, hopefully, and then caused that to be entirely preempted. But at the very least, by saving that time, that 19 minutes, or 17 minutes to troubleshoot, we would have had that answer for them, and that's reducing the mean time to repair by 60%. So insights are really, really good. I'm just about to wrap. I see I'm getting the cane. So the last thing I want to talk about is getting the best start. We're very busy people as Canadians. You know, we go off to work, we go off to school. Some of us, we travel alone. Some of us, you know, we carpool. Some of us, we take public transit. But no matter what we do, it requires a lot of energy on our part. So we want to make sure that we're off to the best start, and that includes a big hearty breakfast loaded with maple syrup and bacon. Yeah, we call it bacon, not Canadian bacon. We just call it that. And so
You're allowed to be wrong.
I'm just kidding. So the point I'm trying to make here, your very best way to start your DNA journey or your journey into intent-based networking is assurance. You drop in the appliance. And then all you have to turn on is telemetry. It's very nominal. It's not heavy. You don't need a lot of investment there. And then you start gathering and collecting insights through your data. This will speed up your troubleshooting. You'll see things you never did before, and then it'll free up that time to do something more strategic and innovative like SDA or other things that can enable and drive your digital transformation. So that's the goal here. That's the message I want to leave you with. In the end, then, it looks like it's a clear winner. DNA assurance down across the board over maple syrup. Thanks for your time. Thanks for indulging me, having a little fun, and thanks for the opportunity.